Good evening. You're watching Meeting the Avance, a special coverage of One News. I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Angela Lagunsad. We bring you the latest developments as election bets conclude their campaign.
Tonight, Angela, is special. It caps off the 90-day campaign period, which felt like just started a few.
Yes, how time goes by.
Right, it was fleeting. And like what I said, tonight is special because simultaneously the presidentiables are holding their Meeting the Avances.
That's right.
We'll be covering Vice President and Senator Kiko Panganiban's Meeting the Avance in Makati. We'll also be checking in on the Meeting the Avance of BBM.
BBM.
Presidential bet Ping Lacson went back to his hometown in Cavite.
We'll be checking out the Meeting the Avance, as we were saying, of BBM and Mayor Sara Duterte in Parañaque.
That's right. And Mayor Isko Moreno is doing his Meeting the Avance as well in Tondo, Manila, while Senator Manny Pacquiao is doing his Meeting the Avance in, of course, in his hometown, General Santos City.
Right. And also we'll be checking in and be asking for insights on election experts on how these Meeting the Avances would actually come to play, especially that we are less than 48 hours away from the election day
itself, and we'll be checking through our reporters on ground.
That's right.
What is going to happen there and what is happening actually. We will check if how was the crowd is going. Are they energetic as well? And Risa, this is a very interesting election coverage as well, and campaign period, if I may say, because there are a lot of certain group of age people like 18 to 24 years old are registered voters, and we will see if they're going to come out and vote. And what else can we expect from tonight?
Well, there's a lot of things to be discussed again as we are, of course, drawing near to the big day, Election Day, which is on Monday. But just a reminder, this is going to be the last day of campaigning, the last few hours that our candidates, the presidentiables, or even the ones running for local position are allowed to campaign. After today, starting tomorrow, should there be any campaigning that's going to happen, there might be violations.
Exactly.
And penalties that should be implemented. Okay, so we are going to be covering again the Meeting the Avance for the next hour and a half. So we hope that you all can join us. Again, it is like what Angelica said, it's a historical election ahead of us.
And not to mention,
very interesting.
And not to mention also that this is going to be the first time in our political history that we are, having this election in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic.
That's true.
Right? And hopefully, with the analysts that we're going to talk with later on, we will see how this pandemic has changed the political landscape, right? And we will know about that later on.
Very good note. Now, let's check in on what's happening on the ground as some of our national candidates hold their Meeting the Avance tonight. We're looking at the live shots, or we're going to look at the live shots from the Uniteam's Meeting the Avance in front of Soler in Parañaque City. Now, this is the final Meeting the Avance of the Marcos Duterte tandem after hosting similar events in Visayas and Mindanao. Now, there were over 340,000 registered voters in Parañaque, but notably only about 231,000 cast their votes in the 2019 elections. Now we have to still get a crowd estimate at the Uniteam's Meeting the Avance, but about 20,000 people are watching the stream online. So again, what we're showing you is the live feed from the Uniteam's Meeting the Avance in Parañaque City. We're seeing actor Robin Padilla, who's also running for senator, on the stage right now. Again, we don't have the exact number yet as to how many people are there gathered, the crowd estimate. We are still trying to verify that information, but we have already the information that online they have more or less 20,000 viewers.
Right, and we will see who else are going to go there to support the campaign in the meeting the Avance of the BBM Unity rally. And we will see if the LGUs or the officers or the government officials are there to support, right? And as you can see now, there are hundreds or thousands of supporters gathered there to support former Senator Bongbong Marcos Jr., as well as vice presidential candidate, and that's Sara Duterte. And we all know that they're both leading in the survey, and we will see if these survey will translate into votes on May 9.
Big crowd that we saw, and later on we'll try to give you the exact numbers as to how many people are gathered there in Parañaque. Now heading over to the historic financial center in Makati City, we'll show you this time scenes or live scenes from the Leni Kiko tandem and the rest of the Tropang Angat. Now, this site bore witness to many historic moments in the country's political history, including the walkout of thousands of office workers, if you would remember, after the assassination of former Senator Ninoy Aquino. Now, this meeting, the Avances, comes just a day after Robredo's team toured her bailiwick in Bicol region. As of 6:45 p.m., which was just a few ticks, the crowd estimate at the Leni Kiko meeting, the Avances stands at around 450,000 already. And on top of that, Angela, some 87,000 people are actually watching online. We're looking at celebrity Ann Curtis on stage, donning like a pink Filipiniana, but on a modern take of things, entertaining the crowd. There's a lot of celebrities coming out in this meeting, the Avances.
Especially in Leni Robredo and Kiko's campaign rally, you would see a lot of celebrities supporting them. And you will see later, and also we hope we could get the estimate of the crowd there and who else are going to be there, political allies. And we have yet to also know what kind of how will these supporters, specifically the endorsements of artists and celebrities, and of course we also have volunteers on the ground. We also have organizational leaders, and and as I've mentioned, the political support from other officials. So we have yet to see also what else can they bring if this can translate to votes.
We know a lot of our kababayans, perhaps at this point still is undecided. So we are also going to find out if this last push, of meeting the Avance could actually sway votes either for which presidential.
Exactly, because we also want to know the soft voters, as they say, the undecided. Meanwhile, the Lacson Sota tandem, capped off their campaign in Ping Lacson's hometown in Cavite, where the two once again laid out their plans for the country. Mian Los Baños has a story.
Presidential Bet Ping Lacson went back to his hometown in Cavite on Friday to hold his meeting the Avance with running mate Senate President Tito Soto.
Ang susunod na presidente at vice-presidente ng Pilipinas, Ping Lacson, Tito Soto!
Cavite is the second most vote-rich province in the country with more than 2 million registered voters. And being Lacson's hometown, he said he wanted to cap off his campaign in the area to express his gratitude for his kababayans.
89 na araw na nakakalipas, kami ay naglunsad ng aming kampanya dito mismo sa ating mahal na lawigan ng Cavite. At dito rin po kami magtatapos ng aming kampanya. Napakarami na naming pinuntahang lugar, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Ngunit babalik at babalik po ako sa ating lalawigan, Cavite. Hindi ko po kayo nakalimutan.
Lacson also thanked his running mate for not leaving him in the race despite other groups wanting to adopt him as their vice presidential bet.
Napakaraming temptasyon. Alam nyo, maraming kumakausap sa kanya. Iwanan mo na si Ping. Gusto ka naming kunin. Gusto ka naming ampunin. Sabi niya, hindi. Hindi ko iiwanan si Ping Lacson dahil nagsimula kaming lumahok sa laban na ito at matatapos kaming dalawa na magkasama. Maraming salamat, partner, sa iyong pagkakaibigan.
Soto meanwhile laid out his plans should he win as the vice president of the country.
Ayaw na po namin yung old style, luma. Puro parali-rali. Hindi mo naman naririnig kung anong pinagdadaanan ng mga kababayan. Ayaw na namin noon. Gusto namin bagong politika ang kailangan natin sa Pilipinas. Walang korupsyon. Ang pera ng gobyerno dapat ibigay sa taong bayan. Budget reform, masagot po namin.
The tandems meeting the Avance was also graced by several personalities including Wally and Jose, Shara Soto, Pauline Luna, Alan Kay, and Kakay Bautista. Lacson and Soto's relatives were also present.
Si Tito Soto ang vice president ko. Hindi porke kapatid ko, hindi porke Soto ako, hindi porke mas pogi ako. May magagawa siya sa gobyerno at higit sa lahat ay sa pamilyang Pilipino.
Even Lacson's grandsons and granddaughters also went up on stage and appealed to the people. Senatorial bets including J.V. Ejercito, Gringo Nasan, Manny Piñol, Dr. Mingita Padilla, and Guillermo Eleazar also had their chance to present their programs. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Talyodi-Walden tandem likewise held their meeting the Avance before the last day of campaigning at the Quezon Memorial Circle in Quezon City. Now, to close out their campaign, the Guzman urged the voting public to do their part in changing a system that has always been run by elites or elitists and traditional politicians. Now, the labor leader added that he has accepted his low ranking in the election surveys, but says he has no regrets given how far they've spread his platforms over 3 months of campaigns. The Guzman says the only advantage other candidates have over him and Bello is a bigger budget.
Kung ang eleksyon ay hindi pera-pera, walang mananalo sa akin dyan sa mga yan. Totoo, kung walang bilyong ginagasto sila, at katulad ko rin lang, na nagsusulisit lang sa mga miyembro, tingin ko, walang mananalo sa amin ni Walden sa kanilang lahat. Kaya lang, siyempre, bilyon-bilyon yung binubuhos nila kumpara sa amin na tapos sa budget.
In his speech at the meeting de Avance, Vice Presidential candidate Walden Bello had some choice words for the survey frontrunners, Marcos Jr. and presidential daughter, Sara Duterte.
Iboboto ba niyo si Marcos Jr.? Iboboto ba niyo si Sara Duterte? Yun hong dalawang yon ay ang tinatawag natin na axis of evil. Yun ho ang axis ng kadiliman. Kaya dapat ho, huwag manalo yung mga hayop na yan.
When you look at May 9, Ed, Ami, is that it's about choosing where the Philippines would be 6 years down the road. But for the voters who have certain preferences, who are energized to choose one over the other, it's time for you to really get out and convert and bring those votes. It's about, at the end of the day, getting that vote out. And who can get that vote out on May 9 will tell us who the president would be. And the next 6 years for the Philippine Republic would be.
To take a look back at the presidential candidates' campaign trails in the last 3 months, political analyst Professor Dindo Manhit himself is joining us live via Zoom. Professor Manhit, good evening.
Good evening, Lisa. Good evening, Angela.
All right. First off, several candidates are concluding their campaigns tonight with a meeting the Avance. How important is this for the candidates, sir?
Meeting the Avance rallies your supporters generates this momentum that 2 days from now, they will all go out, get those votes out, and make the victory for the candidate. And right now, when you look at the numbers these past few months, we know for a fact that the focus in the Avance and the generating of support should be with the leading candidate, which is Marcos Jr., and the second placer, which is VP Leni Robredo.
Right, but what is your assessment on the presidential aspirants' campaigns? Who among them do you think stood up and stood out, and why?
When you look at the science behind campaigns, we call it quantitative study, and it has reflected in surveys after surveys. It seems that Bongbong Marcos was able to tell a better story. And I would like to use that phrase, tell that story. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of questions about that story. But it's for voters to accept that. It seems that there is some acceptance. The story that he's telling seems that also shows that he is perceived to be most qualified, most capable, most honest, trustworthy, and even not corrupt. But on one hand, we have seen VP Leni Robredo from single digit, lower than the number 3 and number 4 in the survey today, which is Pacquiao and Mayor Isko Moreno, rising and rising months and weeks after. And now, that's why I believe it's between Marcos and VP Leni Robredo. On the other hand, with VP Leni, what you see is the energy of the campaign. We have not seen that in the history of Philippine campaigning, whereby on one hand, you have the Marcos Jr. campaign bringing forth support coming from traditional political leaders, traditional local executives. On the other hand, you see this volunteer campaign by VP Leni. So come May 9, that will be something that we all need to watch out. Will it be the volunteers, the energy of those volunteers, the energy of those people across sector, or the traditional political machine, which will deliver the votes by May 9?
Right, but several candidates have always drawn huge crowds in their campaign rallies. But do you think these will have a big impact on votes turnout come Monday?
That is very important when these crowds are simply organic to the campaign. That's why I emphasize the word energy of the campaign of VP Leni, because it's something that for me who has studied elections since the early 90s, we have not seen this energy. The only question is this energy enough to turn into a strong victory or even votes that can overcome the lead of Marcos that is being reflected by numerous surveys months after months.
But talking about
it's the period of what we call in campaigns, get out the vote. How do you get out the vote? Because what we see in surveys, Risa and Angela, is simply preferences. You need to turn those preferences into actual votes on May 9th.
Exactly. And Vice President Leni Robredo and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. have also ran for the same post during the 2016 elections. In your opinion, sir, how different or similar do you think this year's polls for the two candidates?
What is different, number one, on the part of Bongbong Marcos, he inherited the political support base of Duterte. I am one of those analysts early on, even before the start of the actual campaign, late last year, saying that with the withdrawal of Bongbong last summer, it seems that without saying it, the Duterte family is totally supporting Marcos, and it reflected in the survey numbers. It was simply with numbers of 20, a little over 20%, maybe in some quarters we track, but with the withdrawal of candidacy or interest of Sara Duterte deciding to step down, we saw a consolidation of forces. That makes it different from 2016. That two forces of Marcos and Duterte coming together and building a strong coalition for Bongbong Marcos, and it came with it the coalition, the political coalition of President Duterte since 2016. You notice that, you see that in all the members of Congress, the different parties coalescing with him. Now, who took some time to decide to run and was able to build this volunteer-driven campaign, natural support base, building it from 8 to 18 to 20 to 24. But some would say it's not enough, and I agree with that. How do you move that 24 now and really target what we call soft supporters of Marcos, soft supporters of other candidates, and make it strong? Because you need to hit that over 30 percentage point to be competitive. And to reach that, you need to take away votes from the leading candidate also.
Professor, Marcos Jr. has always stayed on top of the pre-election surveys, but if Vice President Leni wins, how do you think this will affect the people's perception on election polls? And do you think this will be a game changer?
This will be a game changer.
A victory by VP Leni will really alter the way we look at elections, because what is being driven now is an alternative way of generating support. We have to accept also that year after year, election after election, we have always been driven by mainstream media. And mainstream media translate into preferences of voters. But in this year alone, we have seen, and we have data to show it through our partner with Pulse Asia, 21% of Filipinos are being influenced by social media engagements and discourse. And we have seen how Marcos was dominating it from October, November, December, up to March. But when we hit April, we saw VP Leni, even as early as late March, overtaking Marcos in social media. That's why you have heard of news about Google Trend. But in our case, we had our own internal tracking on it, working with our analytics partner. So the question is it enough? Is it a better measurement of engagement turning into actual votes? Or is it still the old way of measuring to quantitative? I myself still believe it's a quantitative. But preferences in surveys should always tell our viewers, our voters, that it's simply a snapshot at that moment. It educates campaign. It tells them where they are weak. If the VP Leni camp accepts the surveys, see it as weakness, but turn it into strength, then they can win. On the part of Mr. Marcos, if they see it as their strength, they need to protect it. So it's really what will happen. Of course, surveys, it's done the third week or the second week of April. So it could be a 2-week-old already. It's now the ground forces, the volunteers on one hand, and the local political leaders on the part of Marcos, traditional political leaders. How will they generate support for both candidates for the presidency?
I see. That's another look. That's another perspective when it comes to looking at surveys. Professor Dindo, you've seen elections over the many years, but this is something that I think these elections bring a lot of firsts, something that we've never seen in the previous elections. But what can we expect, Professor, on May 9? And could there be surprises that could happen still on the big day?
The surprises will really tell us if the pandemic itself affected how surveys are being run. If they read it well and they fail in terms of projection or predicting the possible result, then that will really alter how we view surveys. But also, it tells us also one of the first is, will social media, the domination in the engagement in the discourse in social media be enough really to tell us certain momentum, certain trends? Again, the actual results of May 9 will tell us that. But at the end of the day, elections is about voters. Who brings their voters out? who generates enough interest that voters will wake up early, will line up until 7 o'clock in the evening to cast their ballot for their chosen candidate. At the end of the day, elections should focus or should center on voters. So key to this is the voters themselves. The Filipino voters, over 65 million voters. What is that future that they see? Is that future they see with a VP Leni Robredo or a Marcos Jr.?
All right, thank you so much. That was political analyst Professor Dindo Manhit. One News Meeting the Avance coverage will be back after this short break. Stay with us.
You're still watching the Meeting the Avance coverage of One News. I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Angela Lagunzad. Survey frontrunners Bongbong Marcos and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte are holding their final meeting the Avance in Parañaque City. Let's get more updates on this. Marlene Alcaide is reporting to us over the phone. Marlene? Seems that we can't understand Marlene at the moment, but we will try to call her back.
Meanwhile, the latest and last survey of Pulse Asia in April barely moved from one in March. Now, presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos has maintained his lead over the others with over 50%. Vice President Leni Robredo is trailing far behind with 23%, dropping 1% from the previous poll. Senator Manny Pacquiao, on the other hand, has now overtaken Moreno with a 7% voter preference. Now, on the vice presidential race, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte has continued to dominate the survey with 55%. She's followed by Senate President Tito Sotto with over 10%. Senator Kiko Pangilinan is coming in third at 16%. Now, Broadcaster Rafi Tulfo still tops the senatorial race with 50%. Trailing him is former Senator Loren Legarda, actor Robin Padilla, former Senators Alan Peter Cayetano, and Chis Escudero also made it to the list. Now, with re-electionist Sherwin Gatchalian and Juan Miguel Zubiri. Former Senator J.V. Ejercito, former Vice President Jejomar Binay, former Senator Risa Ontiveros, and former Senator Jingoy Estrada are included in the list as well.
Now, survey frontrunners Bongbong Marcos and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte are holding their final meeting de Avance in Parañaque City. Let's get more updates on this. Marlene Alcaide is reporting to us via phone. Marlene, how is the meeting de Avance going so far?
Yes, actually, sea of red here along Jokno Boulevard, corner Asian Avenue in Parañaque City. The supporters of Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte are already here to show support in their final meeting de Avance. Security has been tight around the area where the unity team's meeting de Avance is being held. In fact, checkpoints were set up in different parts along with policemen deployed to ensure peaceful conduct of the event. Supporters are starting to fill the open grounds near Soler, and many of them are wearing red and even carrying placards. Some supporters can also be seen walking to the venue while some are on board a bus. The group Next Gen for BBM Sara offered a free shuttle service for their supporters who would want to attend tonight's meeting de Avance. We're seeing a lot of politicians here, Angela. Right now, we saw Quezon City mayoral candidate Mike Defensor and some lawmakers and other local officials here at the backstage. Now, Angela, several artists are still performing, and the main program has yet to start. And everyone's waiting for Marcos and Duterte's arrival. The Marcos-Duterte tandem has been leading in the presidential and vice presidential surveys. But whether or not it's enough for them to win the presidency and vice presidency, we will know on Monday. Angela, the meeting de Avance is expected to end between 9 to 11 in the evening. Motorists are advised to avoid the rally site and its surrounding areas and take alternate routes instead. Angela?
Do we have an estimate of the crowd that is attending right now at the meeting de Avance of former Senator Bongbong Marcos and Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte?
We don't have an exact estimate of a crowd here as of the moment, but we can see thousands of people here on the ground. But the exact estimate, we still have to wait for that later tonight, Angela.
All right, thank you for your updates. That was Marlene Alcaide reporting to us from Parañaque City. Presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos has also maintained his lead over the other bets in the latest survey of Octa Research. Maricel Halili has the report.
Out of the 2,400 respondents in Octa Research latest survey, 58% said they will choose Ferdinand Marcos Jr. if the elections were held from April 22 to 25. His numbers were up by 1 percentage point compared to the previous survey. While Vice President Leni Robredo's numbers went up by 3 percentage points to 25%, this is not enough to catch up to the presidential frontrunner. Mayor Isko Moreno, meanwhile, settled at third place with 8%, Senator Manny Pacquiao with 5%, Senator Ping Lacson with 2%, followed by Faisal Mangondato, Norberto Gonzales, and Leody de Guzman. Moreno was not surprised and even congratulated Marcos for remaining as the survey frontrunner.
Wala namang bago eh. Again, with all honesty, congratulations sa mga nanalo sa survey.
Calyodi says he doesn't even pay attention to these surveys.
Hindi ko siya pinapansin dahil hindi naman ako trapo eh. Hindi naman ako parang politiko na walang importante kundi ang eleksyon.
Octa reminds the public that their survey has a margin of error of 2%. They also said the survey results should not be a basis for the voting public come May 9 and must only be treated as academic information. In an interview with 1PH, Octa Research Professor Guido David said that 20% of survey respondents were soft voters.
So, kumbaga, pili ko ito pero baka nag-isipan ka pa, baka palitan ko pa yung...
David also stressed that survey results are not predicatory of election results, but rather a picture of the things to come. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
The COMELEC is reminding Filipinos of some changes in the voting process come Election Day. Find out in this report by Greg Gregorio.
Despite the pandemic, some 65 million registered voters are expected to cast their ballots on Monday. With this comes changes in the voting process. COMELEC reminds everyone that they have to undergo temperature check before entering the polling center. Those with high temperature will be asked to rest for a bit. Should the temperature not go down, that's when they will proceed to the isolation polling precinct to vote.
Maliban doon sa tinatawag nating voters assistance desk, iba pa yung medical assistance desk para daw yung may mga nakita na maaari may simptomas ng COVID-19 ay mabigyan din ng karampatang treatment.
Voters can go straight to the voters assistance desk to know his or her polling precinct. Once verified, a ballot, a secrecy folder, and a marking pen will be handed out. Voters need not to present vaccination cards or negative test results.
Kahit hindi ka vaccinated or fully vaccinated, you can vote. You don't need to bring any identification ID. Provided kapag may challenge sa'yo, then that's the time hanapan ka ng ID.
Voters can undervote or vote less than the suggested number of candidates. Voters also do not have to worry about the ink blotting on the other side of the page.
Fake news yan. Kasi kapag tinignan mo yung balota, yung bilog sa likod, hindi naman siya tatama sa bilog din sa kabila.
A cheat sheet or a list of your chosen candidates is advised, as using cell phones inside the precinct is prohibited. Also not allowed is campaigning for anyone on May 9, while voters can still wear the color of their preferred candidate. Their clothes should not bear anything linked to the candidate. Once voting is done, COMELEC advises everyone to go home immediately to avoid crowd exposure. The Commission also assured that power supply will be sufficient and that Meralco has deployed generator sets in the event of sudden power interruption. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, We Are One News.
Now let's check in on the situation at the Leni meeting the Avance in Makati. We have mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro joining us over the phone to give us an update. Jacob, good evening. Can you tell us what's going on so far?
Riza, it's the last day of the campaigning, and the camp of Vice President Robredo and Senator Kiko Pangilinan plans on going out with a bang. The Leni tandem is holding their meeting the Avance, their last and grandest rally in Makati City, closing the three avenues of Ayala, Makati, and Paseo de Rojas. And as of 6 p.m., organizers here announced that the crowd is estimated at 450,000 and counting. This is their biggest crowd yet. The program started at 5 p.m. and is currently ongoing. Speakers took their time to thank their volunteers for their hard work in organizing rallies and campaigning house to house. Celebrities and artist performers firmly roared, "Hindi ako bayad." But the meeting the Avance was not enough for Robredo today. This morning, Robredo held her longest caravan yet, starting from the province of Tarlac, crossing Panichi, Gerona, and Tarlac City, then going to Pampanga, crossing Mabalacat, Angeles City, and San Fernando City, before going to a covenant signing with transport groups in Pasay City. And later at 8 p.m., Robredo is expected to arrive here at the meeting the Avance. As jam-packed Robredo's schedule usually is, her supporters also faced more hindrances. Online reports circulated regarding buses choking the Mandaluyong Bridge, causing heavy traffic and delaying many of the Leni supporters. But these weren't just any buses. Plastered on their windshields were signs saying Mandaluyong delegates for BBM Sara. But the buses were allegedly empty and no passengers were seen boarding them. Recall that the ruling Abalos political clan of Mandaluyong have allied themselves with Bongbong Marcos. But a source from the Mandaluyong LGU said this was not their doing, and the circumstances were most likely just coincidental. Riza?
Well, thank you for those updates. That was mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro reporting to us live from Makati City.
And for more details on the Vice President's meeting the Avance in Makati City, we have OVP spokesperson Attorney Barry Gutierrez live via Zoom. Attorney Barry, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Angela. Good evening, Riza.
Yes. How is the meeting the Avance going on so far? What are the preparations that you guys did for this day?
Well, we had to rush preparations for the Makati event. We only started constructing the stage and doing the physical setup yesterday at 9 p.m. in the evening. And already this morning, even before the physical setup was completed, we already had people coming in. There were about 5,000 people already in Ayala this morning. And as was stated earlier, by 6 o'clock, we already had close to 1 million, over 450,000. So VP Leni has not yet taken the stage. She has not yet given her speech. So we expect this to grow even bigger.
Yeah, and your meeting the Avance in Naga yesterday, as seen on news, had a very large crowd turnout of over 300,000. Is this something that you expected?
Well, it's something we hoped for, but definitely 300,000 in Naga is something really overwhelming. It's definitely not close to Metro Manila in terms of population. It's a much smaller city. So that huge turnout, I think, is simply proof of what we have been saying all along. This has really blossomed into a people's movement. And the organic support for VP Leni, particularly in her own province, but in all other places she has gone to, is seen in these huge crowds.
And of course, we also would like to know what are your plans after this meeting, the Avance and your expectations as well on May 9.
Well, tomorrow will be a rest day. Campaigning will no longer be allowed. So VP Leni will be going home to her home province in preparation for voting on May 9. But definitely, since it's Sunday and Mother's Day, it will be a time to spend a bit of time with her family, to pray and go to church in preparation for May 9. And on May 9, of course, we hope that all these huge efforts by volunteers over the last 7 months, not just in rallies or house-to-house campaigns or in their community activities, but in all the small things they have done to support VP Leni and Senator Kiko, this will translate into a massive mobilization of the vote for her. So actually, we're all feeling pretty confident. We're all very, very, very positive going into Monday. And we think we will be able to pull this off through the help and through the energy of the People's Campaign.
Attorney Gutierrez, what are your plans? What is the camp's plan if Vice President Leni Robredo wins?
Well, obviously, the Vice President. If she wins, then it's going to be directly to work. There's a lot of there are many problems. There are many issues that have to be addressed. And her leadership style has always been very, very hands-on, very, 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 very hardworking. So probably just a bit of rest and immediately getting to work, working with the outgoing administration to ensure a smooth transition, first and foremost, and then forming the team that she will be working with in the next 6 years.
Attorney Barry, with that being said, is her cabinet members set already? Does she already have a plan for that?
Well, we don't have a list of names that is final yet, but definitely the first order of business will be to form a search committee. She has promised many times and made very clear that the people that she will select for her cabinet will be really the best and the brightest, the people most qualified. So that will be the immediate concern, setting up a fair and comprehensive search committee process so that anyone who is qualified and the people who are best qualified will be recruited and put into the positions where they can do the most good.
Attorney Barry Gutierrez, this is Angela again. President Duterte took a jab at the Vice President and you, saying that Senator De Lima will be pardoned if she wins. And what is your reaction on this?
Our reaction is there's no need for a pardon for Senator De Lima. The major witnesses against her have already recanted, and we are confident that just going through the regular process, we'll see her freed soon enough, provided that that process is fair and impartial, as it should be.
Right. And circling back to May 9, how do you plan to guard the votes? And are your legal team and volunteers ready if something comes up?
Well, they're definitely ready. They're definitely prepared. And one of the advantages that we have and that we're very grateful for is really the army, a literal army of volunteers who have signed up to be poll watchers, as well as a massive cadre of lawyers. We have over 1,000 lawyers who have volunteered to be part of this effort. They have already organized themselves into regional units with quick reaction teams. So we're fairly confident that we will be able to cover the polls everywhere in the Philippines, and that in the event there are issues that need to be addressed, problems that need to be responded to, then we have these teams on the ground who will be able to react and take the necessary actions wherever and whenever they may be needed.
Right. And talking about Robredo supporters, there are reports of being blocked at the Mandaluyong-Makati border earlier this day. What's the latest on this?
As far as I heard earlier, we reached out both to MMDA and the Mandaluyong city government. And soon after this initiative was undertaken, the roadway was cleared. So I don't know the full story, whether it was a deliberate attempt to actually prevent or at least make entry into Makati more difficult, or whether it was, just a matter of happenstance. But at the end of the day, the problem was resolved, and we now have over 500,000 people here in Makati. We expect more. So all's well that ends well. It's just testament to the fact that whatever obstacles there may be, the People's Campaign will find a way.
Sir, some of your volunteer watchers have reportedly backed out due to threats and pending IDs from the COMELEC. Are you aware of this situation?
We have been receiving constant reports, and the legal team of the campaign is addressing them. Definitely, this is a concern that we take very seriously, and we're right now engaged in coordinating directly both with COMELEC and the local officials in the areas concerned. But one thing we will assure all the supporters and all volunteers is that come election day, there will be watchers on the ground. There will be lawyers who will be ready to react to any issue that may crop up. Because this is something that we intend to fight out till the finish. We have the volunteers, we have the manpower to do it. We are committed to seeing this through, and we are confident that the outcome will be positive on May 9.
Attorney, we are on the last day of the campaign period. Would like to know, as to your camp, what would be your last pitch for, over the 65 million Filipino registered voters that are set to cast their ballots on Monday, May 9?
Well, I don't want to preempt the Vice President. She will be making the last pitch in an hour or so when she takes the stage here at the meeting, the Avance. But one thing I will say is we only reached this point because of the massive support, the energy and enthusiasm of our volunteers. They have carried us all the way to this point, to the cusp of victory. And I am fully confident going into election day that, again, it will be the energy, the enthusiasm, the commitment of our volunteers and our supporters that will give us the victory.
All right, on that note, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, Spokesperson, Attorney Bali Gutierrez of the Office of the Vice President.
Now, let's talk again about the unit team's final meeting, the Avance in Parañaque City. Joining us over the phone is Attorney Vic Rodriguez. He is the spokesperson of the presidential bet, Bongbong Marcos. Attorney Vic, good evening.
Hi, Risa and Angel. Good evening, and thank you for inviting me in your program tonight.
Sir, thank you for joining us because we know it's a busy night. First off, how is the meeting, the Avance so far going? Can you describe to us the atmosphere?
Well, it's very festive, and it's a people's celebration for us able to complete our 90-day grueling yet satisfying campaign period without any illness on the part of our candidates and without anything unfortunate or untoward that happened during the campaign, and to any of those who participated in our campaign team, for which we are very, very grateful.
Attorney Vic, what would be the Marcos camp's expectation come election day? Where will you guys be situated at?
We are approaching the election day with confidence, but we are not complacent, and we are always vigilant. We will just all be in our headquarters, monitoring the goings-on election day, as well as attending to whatever problem that might arise.
Yes. Attorney Vic, this is Angela. I'd also like to know, should Marcos Jr. win the presidency, what will be his plans afterwards? Does he already have cabinet members in mind?
I'm sorry, Angela. We do not look beyond May 9. We do not want to be presumptuous. We're not assuming anything. And I would rather not respond to anything that is hypothetical. We have a campaign period to complete, and we still have an election to win, and we're going to win it come Monday.
Right. But what is your reaction to President Duterte saying that no hidden wealth was ever found from the Marcos family?
Sorry, I did not hear you. Sorry.
What was your reaction about President Rodrigo Duterte saying there was no hidden wealth found in Marcos family?
Well, napapasalamat kami at yun naman ang lagi namin sinasabi. And history is judging the Marcoses kindly because we have all been a victim of fake and false news.
Attorney, kamakailan po nagbigay po ng pahayag si former Senator Marcos Jr. Calling out for his supporters to guard their votes on election day. How exactly do you want this to happen? Paano po nila babantayan ang kanilang mga boto? And is your legal team and likewise your volunteers ready to guard the votes?
We are ready at we intend to do it by asking all our supporters, and in your program tonight, kami ay nananawagan sa lahat na nagmamahal at sumusuporta sa tambalang Bongbong Marcos Sara Unit Team na tayo po ay bumoto ng maaga sa May 9 at habang paganda ng paganda, yung mga nagiging numero at resulta ng survey after survey after survey after survey, malinaw po kay Bongbong Marcos at kay Mayor Inday Sara Duterte na wala pa ho kaming ipinapanalong halalan. Ang pinakamahalagang survey ay sa darating na Lunes, May 9, kaya po kami ay nananawagan. Bumoto po tayo ng maaga sa May 9 at sama-sama po tayo maging vigilant, mapagmatsyag, mapagbantay at bantayan po natin ang ating boto at ang bilangan nang sa ganon makasiguro tayo yan na yung tunay na halal ng sambayanang Pilipino ang mamumuno sa Pilipinas sa susunod na 6 na taon.
Yes, Attorney Vic, I'd like to know also, how is former First Lady Imelda Marcos? Is she going to attend the meeting, the Avance of her son, BBM?
Just like any mother, kagaya ng kahit sinong nanay, kahit nanay mo, ito isang mahalaga at makasaysayang okasyon sa buhay ng nanay ng kung sino man. At kinukuha ko na rin ang pagkakataong ito upang bumati ng Happy Mother's Day sa lahat ng nanay at ganun din kay Mrs. Imelda Romualdez Marcos.
So are we going to be expecting her on in the rally tonight?
Well, she might come, okay, she might appear, she might join, but definitely she is somewhere out there rooting and supporting her son, just like any mother would do sa kanyang anak.
Moving on, I'd also like to ask, some volunteer watchers from the camp of Robredo have reportedly backed out due to threats. Do you have the same instance in your camp, Attorney?
Sorry, I cannot hear you. Come again, sorry.
Yeah, some volunteer watchers from the camp of Robredo have reportedly backed out due to threats. Do you have the same instance in your camp?
No, I cannot hear you well. I hope I'm saying it in the right context. But let's not all play victims here. Basta't kami, gagawin namin yung aming dapat gawin. Kami, inaatupag lang namin yung sarili naming kampanya at pagbabantay ng boto. At higit sa mayorya, ng sambayanang Pilipino ang tumutugon sa panawagan at sa kilusang pagkakaisa na inilunsad ni Bongbong Marcos at ni Mayor Inday Sara Duterte.
Attorney Vic, panghuli na lamang po kasi alam po namin ay napakaabala po nitong gabi para sa inyo. Ano po ang inyong huling kumbaga panawagan sa ating mga kababayan? What would be your last pitch before again the May 9 polls, especially for those that are still undecided up to this point?
Ako po ay nananawagan sa sambayanang Pilipino at bilang isang Pilipino, tayo po lahat ay bumoto at gamitin po natin ang ating napakahalagang karapatang bumoto. At siguro ngayon pa lamang ay nakapamili na kayo ng kung sino ang inyong iboboto bilang Pangulo at Vice Pangulo. Magkaganoon pa man, kahit po sino ang inyong napili, kung ano man ang inyong political color, race or creed, hindi na po mahalaga yan. Ang mahalaga ay bumoto po tayo sa May 9, 2022 election. Sa Lunes na po yan. At pagkatapos po ng halalan, respetuhin natin kung sino ang mananalo, suportahan natin ang ating magiging Pangulo at Vice Pangulo at tatandaan po natin, iisa ang ating lahing Pilipino, iisa ang ating bansa, ang bansang Pilipinas at mahalin po natin ang bansang Pilipinas. Bongbong Marcos, number 7 sa balota, Mayor Inday Sara Duterte, numero 4 sa balota.
Attorney Vic, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras na ibinahagi sa amin. Muli, that's Attorney Vic Rodriguez, spokesperson of presidential bet of Bongbong Marcos Jr. And we'll be back with more of the meeting and the Avance stories in a while. Keep it here on One News. The Meeting the Avance coverage of One News continues. I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Angela Lagunzad.
Now, with President Duterte's term set to end in June, will we see a continuation of his landmark projects under the administration of the next president? That we'll find out. We'll get insights also from political analyst Mr. Leni is joining us. Sir Leni, good evening.
Good evening, Riza and Angela.
Sir, first off, what is your assessment of the Duterte's administration? What were some of his highs and lows?
Well, I think, over the past 6 years, we have seen the president, implement some of his campaign promises. And we have also seen the president failing to implement some of his campaign promises, like, say, for example, the promise, his campaign promise back in 2016, wherein he's saying that he's going to defend our sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea to the extent that, to the point that he would use a jet ski just to defend our sovereign rights. I think that's something that we did not see all throughout the term of the president. But of course, there are other, positive things that we can say about the Duterte administration. Say, for example, he has shown us that a president should be decisive in times of a crisis. And that's exactly what he did during the pandemic and during the Marawi siege, for example. But of course, on the other hand, I think the administration, towards the end of its term, has been involved in some of the major corruption issues, like the pharmaceutical scandal, which involves some high-ranking, allegedly involving the cousin of Senator Bongo in the anomalous, irregular purchasing of the PPEs, which were badly needed for, by our health workers. And apart from that, I think we had also seen the administration being involved in the PhilHealth corruption scandal. The PhilHealth executive could not explain what happened to the 15 billion funds that had been allotted to that agency.
Sir Dennis, who is most likely, in your opinion, to continue President Duterte's plans should they win as president?
Well, I think it's going to be Bongbong Marcos. But I think he's not the only one. If you're going to base it on their campaign promises and their stances, I think it's not only Bongbong Marcos, but we should also include Manila City Mayor Isko Moreno. Except that between the two, it was Bongbong Marcos who finally got the endorsement of the president. Something which Isko Moreno has been eyeing for, I think, in the past few months. So, Bongbong Marcos admitted it himself that he's not going to change most of the major policies and programs of the president. He specifically mentioned that he would continue that should he win, he would continue President Duterte's build program, except that he's going to integrate with it the digital component. So he's sort of modifying the president's major programs. I think he is also inclined to push through with the president's anti-illegal drugs campaign, but he would rather do it in a subtle way, in the sense that he would rather remove the violent component and infuse another approach, like focusing on education, prevention, and rehabilitation. So those, I think, are some of the president's major programs that BBM is bent to continue should he win this election.
You've mentioned Build program of Duterte administration and other things in his platform. How crucial is this for the next president to continue or deviate from the current administration?
I'm sorry?
You've mentioned earlier about some programs or platforms of President Rodrigo Duterte, and how crucial is this for the incoming administration to continue these projects or deviate from such projects?
Well, I think that some of the programs of the current administration will remain relevant in the next 6 years. But I think that there are some programs of the president, the incumbent president, that will not be relevant. I mean to say, even if you ask, the people, I think in the surveys, they already indicated some of the key issues which they think are pressing and need to be addressed by the next president. And I think among the current programs of President Duterte, that the people do not find relevant as it was. I think it includes the anti-illegal drugs campaign of the president. Although, most Filipinos still think that the drug menace continues to be a problem for the country. But given the negative impact of the pandemic, they don't see it as a pressing problem in the next 6 years. So I think the issues that the people would think as really very relevant and that need to be addressed by the next president include the economic issues, and as well as I think our foreign policy with regard to China. So and in addition to that, I think that the people also think that the government should improve its healthcare program, especially that we are not out of the woods yet. We're still experiencing the pandemic, and the next president should be able to upgrade or look for better ways, in solving the negative effect on the people's health. So I think those are the economic issues that the next president should be able to address in the next 6 years.
Right. And it's good that you mentioned about the pandemic because, as I've said earlier on the show, that this is the first time in our political history that we are going to have election amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. So how did this pandemic change the landscape or the political landscape in our country?
Well, it has affected, the pandemic has affected our political landscape a lot. Number one, I think it has become a major election issue. No presidential candidate would like to create a campaign that has no pandemic component in it. So I think all the presidential candidates as well as the vice presidential candidates have seen to it that the pandemic, that there's a solution to the pandemic, in their campaign platforms. Second, I think the pandemic has also affected or has threatened to affect the voting turnout. This Monday, I think about 65 million Filipinos are going to go out of their houses to vote. But of course, there is this, looming threat that this voting event might become a super spreader event. But luckily for us, the COMELEC has already issued, health protocols as well as the long-standing health protocols of the IATF. So they're meant to guarantee that the voting event on Monday is not going to, spread the COVID-19 virus.
Sir, there's a lot of components, that makes this election very, very interesting. But based on your experience, what are the things that we could expect come election day?
I'm sorry, I think I didn't hear that right.
What are the things, sir, that you expect to see come election day based on your experience?
Well, I expect that since this is a presidential election, just like any other presidential election, the people will really are going to be very excited to choose the highest leader of our land. And I think that I'm thinking that the COMELEC's projection would come true. They're saying that the voting turnout would be 80%, and that's a slight. I think that's the average compared to the last presidential election, when I think we also got 80% voting turnout. So that's on the average. That's the average voting turnout in the past few years for the presidential elections. So I'm hoping that the pandemic is not going to, diminish the fervor of the Filipinos, and that it's not going to produce the fear that everyone is expecting, that they're not going to go out to vote.
Well, thank you, Sir Dennis, for sharing with us your time and your insight. That was political analyst Mr. Dennis Coronacion.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Senator Manny Pacquiao is holding his meeting de Avance in General Santos City. Let's get more details on this. Mon Gualvez is reporting to us live from Gensan. Mon, what makes this meeting de Avance special for Senator Manny Pacquiao?
Angela, it's been 90 days exactly since Senator Manny Pacquiao began his campaign here in General Santos City. And now that it is about to finish his campaign, he is now doing his meeting de Avance back in his hometown. From the stage to posters all over the city to performers, all set for the extensive de Avance meeting of the prom-de presidential candidate. The Oval Plaza of General Santos City is also filled with supporters. According to the authorities, the plaza can accommodate more than 20,000 individuals. But because General Santos City is under Alert Level 2, only 75% of the capacity in the outdoor venue will be allowed. Apart from Pacquiao, some performers and artists are also expected at the grand rally, including Freddy Aguilar, Toy Yunting, Marcelito Pomoy, and the Gutierrez family, including Rufa and Richard. Mommy Dionisia is also scheduled to go to the ballroom again while Jinky is singing. Pacquiao's message is still expected to be centered on the revolution of the poor. This is his call to bring all the poor together to vote for the candidate who truly understands their situation and will bring them out of difficulty. Angela, Pacquiao's running mate, Congressman Lito Atienza, will not be able to attend this grand meeting de Avance, but he is expected to give a recorded video message later on. Angela.
All right, thank you for your updates. That was Mon Gualvez reporting from General Santos City.
And now to give us the latest update on the election preparations, we have with us the newly minted spokesperson of COMELEC, Mr. John Rex Laudianco is joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Marisa. Good evening, Angela.
Sir, we'd like to check, is it all systems go for Monday's election? Are there any last-minute preparations that are still underway?
Yes, we expect that by Monday, early Monday morning, all systems will be on go. Right now, we're just waiting for 26% of the cluster precincts to terminate and finish their final testings and sealings. We expect them to finish tomorrow, these remaining precincts to finish their FTS.
Sir, the COMELEC has been constantly reminding voters of, the things that they have to remember come election day. But what would be the last-minute important reminders that you would like to address to our voters?
Okay. First, we urge the voters to come early to the polling stations. Sabi nga po ng chairman namin, bumoto ng maaga, iwas sa bala. Second, please have your lists of candidates ready. It will facilitate, it will lessen the time of you being in the polling stations. It will make you in a better position to vote wisely if you have those lists. On the other side of the preparations for your safety, please always wear your mask. While inside the polling centers, while inside the voting centers, please maintain the minimum public health standards, especially the physical distancing, at least 1 meter physical distancing. Also, we ask, you still have time, please check. You still have time tomorrow. If you have the opportunity, go to the polling centers tomorrow. You can check your rooms. that will likewise facilitate your entry and exit into the polling centers. You will be able to go directly to the room where your precinct is assigned. But in case if you don't have that opportunity, there will be voters assistance desk stationed at the entrance of all polling centers, wherein you could inquire from the volunteers from the PPCRV and other poll workers where your room assignment is. Also, please bring your alcohols and other sanitation materials, and always, 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 please keep your face masks on.
Sir, may singit ko lang. You mentioned face masks. Let's talk about the voters coming out to the polling precincts. Bawal po, ipinagbabawal po ng COMELEC, tama po, ang pagsusuot ng mga t-shirts or yung mga masks that bears the name of the candidates, correct?
Yes, please, that is correct. We urge you not to bring any campaign material to the polling centers. Bawal na po mangampanya starting tomorrow. At kasama po ito, napaka-importante ulit, bawal na bawal po lalong mangampanya on May 9. You can wear the colors of your choice. Perhaps there's a linkage to that color, but please, no campaign materials which will identify specifically the candidates that you are referring to.
Right. Spokesperson, sir, the COMELEC has been going around since the start of the campaign period about to remind the public about the omnibus election code that prohibits vote buying. How many cases of vote buying is the poll body currently looking into, and how many more complaints are coming in as we speak?
As of today, 10 vote buying complaints have been lodged with the Law Department of the Commission on Elections. But this doesn't include those lodged with the offices of the prosecutors throughout the country, that of the National Prosecution Service. As we all know, under Public Act 9369, the prosecution of election offense is now concurrent, not just with the Commission on Elections, but also with the National Prosecution Service. So pwede rin po talagang mag-file ng vote buying complaints sa office po ng prosecutors, hindi lang sa COMELEC. And we will be coordinating with the Department of Justice for the statistics of the complaints filed with them.
All right. Moving on to another topic, how did you feel about getting appointed as the poll body spokesperson this close to the elections?
As we all know, I have big shoes to fill. Director James is a legend in the Commission on Elections. And I have worked with him with so many elections. In fact, his department, the Education and Information Department, is closely tied up with my department, the Law Department. So we have been used to working with each other hand in hand in all the issues and all the matters that the COMELEC had been dealing with. It's just that my department, the Law Department, had been more on the backside of the limelight, and Director James is at the forefront.
Sir, we'd also like to ask if you could please give us an update on the ongoing investigation regarding the canceled COMELEC debates.
If you will permit me, the matter is still under investigation by the Commission and Bank. In order not to preempt any move on the part of the Bank, let's just say that it is still under investigation.
Sir, on another topic, we're getting reports that some volunteers and watchers of the camp of Vice President Leni Robredo have reportedly backed out due to threats. And they have also issues on pending IDs and permits from your agencies. What's your comment on this?
Okay. For those who are experiencing threats, be it light, less serious, or grave threats referring to elections, please do not hesitate to go to the nearest police station, to go to their nearest COMELEC office, so that you could report this. As you know, coercions, threats are also election offenses, punished under the Omnibus Election Code, so that we would be able to ask you to execute the proper complaints. If you have any evidence or testimonies regarding that, please submit it with that complaint. File it properly with the offices of the Commission. If you choose to file it with the Office of the Prosecutor, so be it. But if you choose to file it with the Commission on Elections, we will assure you that a preliminary investigation regarding your complaint will be conducted. So we will be able to determine if there's probable cause to file an information against the erring individuals.
All right. Finally, what is your message to the number of Filipinos who are doubting the integrity of the upcoming polls on account of rumors that some camps are planning dirty tricks to manipulate the polls?
For our automated elections since 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019, this will be the 5th automated national and local elections that our country will be having. And in all these elections, cases, election protest cases demanding recounts, demanding validation of the votes had been filed. And most of this went to the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court decides, they really investigate and goes down to the root of the problem. And proudly, the COMELEC, the Commission on Elections, could say that all these protest cases regarding contesting the accuracy, contesting the system, the automated election system, failed. All of these were dismissed, and until now, the Supreme Court has yet to reverse an election result conducted by the Commission on Elections.
Well, thank you,
therefore,
sir.
Yes.
Go on, sir. Go on.
Add it up to the results of the random manual audit that we had been conducting since 2010, the result of which is 99.95% accuracy. So, sa ating mga kababayan po, pagkatiwalaan niyo po yung sistema. Siguro po, masabi ko lang on a personal note, most of us in the Commission on Elections will be voting tomorrow. Okay? And we will be ensuring that our votes, your votes together with our votes, will be counted po. And we will be exercising not just a right, but we will be performing our obligation to our country, which will benefit the future Filipinos. So please exercise your right, perform your obligations, go out and vote tomorrow, vote wisely, and be safe while voting.
Maraming salamat. That was COMELEC spokesperson Mr. Rex Laudianco.
Let's now head over to Tondo, Manila, where the team, action led by presidential candidates Isko Moreno, will be having their meeting the Avance tonight. For the latest update from the ground, we have Romel Lopez reporting over the phone from the city of Manila. Romel, what's the situation there?
Well, Angela and Rick Action Democratic Party will conclude the 90-day campaign period here in Moriones, Tondo. Action standard there, Mayor Moreno and his group were welcomed by thousands of supporters. And indeed, it is a standstill here in Moriones as supporters of Action, headed by Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and his running mate, Dr. Willie Ong. Clad in blue and white, thousands of supporters are lined up to watch over the much anticipated meeting the Avance at Isko. Mayor Isko's time to speak at this moment, and thousands of supporters are gathered here today show their support to the Manila Mayor vying for the top position in the land. As of 6 p.m., an estimated 7,000 supporters have already gathered in the area. Moreno is joined by his senatorial slate, Samiragutok, Balita, Jopos Sison, and Jan Castriciones. Senatorial aspirant David Ejercito is in attendance as well, despite not being included in his original senatorial lineup. Moreno said he chose to cut off his campaign here in Manila as it is close to his heart, being the place where he began his journey as a child and eventually as a public servant. Moreno has offered himself as an alternative candidate for those who are done with political conflicts. As a crisis manager, that's how he packaged himself to the public. Moreno has openly said that he will promote better education, public health, infrastructure, better job and business opportunities, and making sure that public response recovery will be attended as well. After this bill is expected to rest before the campaign, Moreno is set to cast his vote here in Tondo as well on Monday, hoping that the man from Manila will be the next chief executive of this country. Angela and Risa.
Thank you for the update. That was Romel Lopez reporting live from Manila.
Now, with 2 days before the May 9 poll, several voters are experiencing what is known as election anxiety. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez tells us more in this report.
Elections, in a way, are meant to feel empowering. After all, the public gets to put in their hands the fate of the country. But for some, instead of giving off positive energy, polls actually result in what is now known as election anxiety. But what is it exactly? Doc Joanne says it refers to the feeling of fear due to uncertainties during election season. This tends to have a mental and emotional effect.
Nawawala ang focus, concentration, attention span, apektado also ang memory. Nagkukos na siya ng conflict with our loved ones, with our friends, with our colleagues sa trabaho.
Kyle, a senior executive in an e-commerce company, even found herself having difficulty breathing.
Maiisip mo, hala ilang araw na lang, election na. Tapos wala kang magawa. Parang gusto mo na lang na dumating na yung araw na yun. Nagkakaroon ka ng times na maiiyak ka na lang.
Another factor that can trigger this anxiety is the overload of election-related information from social media, including the proliferation of fake news. That's why, as per Sid, a social media break is necessary.
Mas ina-isolate ko yung grupo, yung sarili ko sa ila. Kumakain ako mag-isa. Mag-break ako, early break.
Along with this, turning off your phone's notifications is a big help to refrain from checking updates and engaging in political conversations.
May mga members na nagtatag ng @everyone. So everyone will be alerted of something important or not important. Kapag may nagtatag sa akin ng @everyone, parang yun, mas kinakabahan ako agad.
But above all, experts stress that awareness and positive mindset are key to control election anxiety. While it is our responsibility to vote wisely on Monday, do not forget that we owe it to ourselves to also take good care of our mental health. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
Some useful tips on how to go about these election anxiety. Now, let's take a look once again at how the meeting the Avance of our presidential frontrunners are ongoing. What you're seeing right now, or what we're going to show you, is a live feed of Marcos Jr.'s meeting the Avance in Parañaque City. Now, Parañaque, where Marcos Jr.'s final rally will take place, or is taking place, is actually home to just over 346,000 voters. NCR is the second most vote-rich region in the Philippines, with over 7.3 million voters in 2022. Metro Manila is still where most of the campaign headquarters are actually located, and where campaign resources are, most abundant.
Parañaque Mayor Edwin Olivares has endorsed Marcos Jr. and Sara Duterte. According to the April 2022 Pulse Asia Voter Preference Survey, Marcos Jr. is the preferred candidate of Metro Manila with a 57% preference rating. Now, who's speaking now? Marcos yet to appear in the meeting the Avance. Right now, as you see in your TV screen, senatorial candidate Harry Roque is now speaking at the moment, and on the stage also you can see Senator Mig Zubiri, and I can also see Senator Jinggoy Estrada.
We got an update earlier from, of course, our correspondents in the venue, and we know that there's a huge crowd and more people are expected to arrive. But also what's interesting is we're getting reports, we're getting news that former First Lady, the mother of Bongbong Marcos, Imelda Marcos, is in the vicinity, and we are awaiting, should there be an appearance from the former First Lady. Again, we are still also waiting for the presidential candidate himself, Bongbong Marcos Jr., to take on to the stage. Okay, so we're also going to give you updates on what's going on in Makati with Vice President Leni Robredo's meeting the Avance. Now, Makati is, Robredo's pick for her meeting the Avance, because we know, Angela, that this place is home to over 458,000 registered voters. Now, for Robredo's meeting the Avance, the story goes further back, in history, way back to early 1980s when the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos was still in power. So this venue is very significant to them.
Exactly. And in September 1983, thousands of people in Makati walked out of their offices mid-afternoon to protest the assassination of Benigno Aquino Jr. And Makati City Mayor Abby Binay has yet to give her endorsement as well. But her father, Jojo Binay, is running for senator. Jojo Binay was included in Robredo's slate. And according to the April 2022 Pulse Asia voter preference survey, Robredo trailed behind Marcos Jr. with a 26% preference in the capital region. And a lot of people are asking how come these massive rallies have not translated into the latest survey. And then there are a lot of factors that these political analysts have been saying that, that we have yet to also see what's happening right now. In going back to the crowd that we are talking about, we have here Jillian Robredo, who's talking as the VP, the camp of Leni Robredo holds the final meeting de Avance in Makati.
We know that this meeting de Avance would go on for a few more hours.
Exactly.
Some of their supporters are perhaps still underway. We are also receiving reports that, Angela, the vicinity around these areas in Pasay City, where BBM and Mayor Sara Duterte's rallies ongoing, traffic situation could be a problem. So please avoid that area, and likewise also in that area of Makati. And simultaneously, we also were able to get a glimpse of how the situation is ongoing with Senator Manny Pacquiao's meeting de Avance in Gensan.
Exactly.
And also Mayor Isko Moreno's meeting de Avance in Tondo, Manila.
And yet, a few days, less 2 days, am I correct, till the elections. We urge the public as well to go out and cast their votes, but still remain vigilant because we are still in the pandemic. So stay up to date with the biggest election happenings with One News 43-hour continuing coverage. Now let's watch this.
On Election Day, May 9, there is only one story. Who's winning and where? One coverage will give you the fastest count, break down the votes, take you to the battleground provinces, and dive in with the best analyses from pundits on both sides of the political divide. The best seats on the elections this May 9 are on One News. All sides, all the time. Watch us.
All right. Angela, we are getting reports there's 340,000 people in one rally, another hundreds of thousands in another. But I think what's more important is this number that we're seeing in the rallies could be translated come Monday when they go to the voting precincts.
Exactly. As you can see, also the crowd's energy is, very alive as they support their favorite candidates in this last stretch or final stretch of the election day. And hopefully, as I've said earlier, people will go out and cast their votes, but still remain vigilant because we are still in the pandemic and we don't want this campaigns and elections be the source of surge.
Right. That's the same reminder that we received from Mr. Laudianco earlier, the newly minted spokesperson of the COMELEC. He was reminding us that, again, the pandemic is very much in effect. So let's still practice health protocols. Bring your alcohols. You can bring your pen because you need to sign in the voters' registration. But of course, the pen for the ballot will be provided there.
Exactly.
We're not getting reports that a vaccination card is needed, but should I would suggest just bring your identification card for the day in itself.
But officially, if you would look at the COMELEC's reminders, they would remind the public that we don't need to bring vaccination cards. But yeah, might as well bring it.
As well.
And then, of course, no need to wear face shield because there were reports before that you need to wear face shield in order to vote. But no need to wear face shield as well. And what else? You have to wait. Nobody else can put your ballot inside the VCM but you only, and check out the receipt to make sure that your vote is casted on that day.
Also, bring your cheat sheet or código so that you don't take long in the voting precincts, and we are not going to hold crowds, and that would help us observe still social distancing. Well, with that, wraps up our Meeting the Avance coverage ahead of Monday's elections. I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Angela Lagonsad. Thank you so much for joining us here on One News. Good evening.